Hello and welcome to our Immigration and Business Insights for foreign business leaders. And the topic that we are converting the conversation today is AI and global entrepreneurs, hosted by the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce, BCCC, in partnership with Canada Start Hub and SMB Legal Advisors. I'm Raquel Bouchard, co-chair of the BCCC Innovation Science and Technology Committee, CEO and founder of Canada Start Hub, and co-founder of AI Learning Lab. The BCCC is a coast-to-coast independent non-profit Canadian organization that promotes business relations between Brazil and Canada for over 50 years by creating and maintaining high-level networking in our sectoral committees and events. I want to thank our annual sponsors, Vale, Melahoc Logistics, Proativa Results, BMA Law, and Brookfield, as well as our members and partners for their continued support. Before we start, we would like to acknowledge that this land, Ontario, where we are, is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississauga of the Credit, the territory of the Anishinaabeg, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples, home of the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississauga of the Credit First Nations. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. At BCCC, we also recognize the importance to stand as leaders, embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion. We recognize that DEI is not just the right thing to do, but essential for our organization's success. We lead the change, understanding that diversity and inclusion practices must permeate all aspects of our business. By weaving DEI into the fabric of our organization, we cultivate an environment where every individual thrives and feels a sense of belonging, innovation flourishes, and collective potential is realized. Let us forge ahead, united in our mission to create a diverse and inclusive future that transcends boundaries and elevates us all. Finally, I'm honored to lead this webinar with Sonia Birbarra, advisor at SMB Legal Advisors, and receive today Andrea Gardella, member of BCCC, director and principal economist at Alcance Solutions. And first, I would like for each of us to take a moment to introduce ourselves so we can better, so you can better understand how we are connected in today's topic. And I would like to start with you, Andrea. We are so glad that you could join us today. So if you can briefly introduce yourself, I really appreciate it.
Muito obrigada, Raquel, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm so happy to be here to talk about a very hot topic, AI and international business. And so for everyone listening, Andrea Gardella here. I'm the director and principal economist of Alcance Solution, and we empower small and medium-sized companies that are working in sustainability-focused industries to empower them with the information they need to grow internationally, mitigate risks, and find strategic opportunities in Latin America and principally Brazil. Thank you so much for having me.
Sonia, now it's your turn.
My turn. Okay. I was waiting for somebody to introduce. Okay. Hi, I'm Sonia. As everybody knows, this is the second series of webinars that we're running with Raquel. It's a pleasure. And it's also a great pleasure to have Andrea, on our second webinar today. I'm Sonia Mirbaja, as you know. I'm principal advisor at SMB Advisors. I've been practicing immigration law for more than 16 years, helping individuals and corporations bringing their activities and immigrate to Canada. I've submitted hundreds and hundreds of applications, PR, temporary residency, and whatnot. And we're just going to be talking about a very exciting topic today that is transforming the way that, practitioners typically deal with immigration applications, and we're going to be talking about what applicants should expect going forward from the system, from immigration applications, and what are the expectations in the future? How is future going to unfold for us when it comes to immigration? Very excited to talk about the topic, and thanks for BCCC for the great support.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you for being the two of you here with me today and representing BCCC as members. Well, I'm Raquel Bichai, I already said. I'm CEO from Canada Start Hub and co-founder of AI Learning Lab. At Canada Start Hub, we have companies to take their first steps in expanding into Canada, so focus on building their reputation and social capital. And through the AI Learning Lab, we partner with training companies, chambers of commerce, and small business centers to offer AI training that helps business leverage technology for growth, efficiency, and competitiveness. So now that you know a bit more about the three of us, I'd like to start our discussion. We received previously some questions, so we will start with them. But at any time you can put in the chat in the questions what would you like for us to answer about this topic. And I will start with our guest. I will start with Andrea, because this is a super hot topic. And AI, immigration, business expansion, there are opportunities, but also there are risks. So my question is, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about using AI in business expansion strategy? Can you dive a bit about that?
Absolutely, Raquel, and thank you so much. And I can't wait to learn from both of you on this webinar. And so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that AI is going to fix all the problems or really be the answer to expansion and going to help you reach that success. And I think one of the most important things that, and particularly me as a risk analyst by background, as an economist by background, is that you have to start with a good foundation. First, AI is so reliant, and that's another misconception that there's somewhat limited human interaction in AI, but in reality, it is so heavily based on what humans put into the model, how they build the model, what rules they put into the model to give you the outputs that you want. And so, as you're thinking about your expansion strategy, and you're thinking, oh, maybe AI can help me find the right markets. You, as a contributor to answering that question, also have to understand, okay, well, what is your objective? That's the number one question that you ask when you build an algorithm, is what's the objective? How do you get the answer to that objective? Is you put in some really, really good data. And so an algorithm will be as good as the data that you put into it and the rules that you build around it. And so I would say that, and I'll put it in a little bit of a bow for this question, is make sure that you think about the structure and the reasons why you're using AI, because it won't be able to answer all the questions that you want, and it may not answer them in the best way that you want them either. And so get involved, get to know the data, get to know what it is that you're really trying to achieve before reaching out for the AI solution. But I may be a contrarian a little bit in that topic as well.
No, I don't think you are, Andrea. I think we have to have great data and to use AI as an assistant, but the decisions have to be made by the leaders for sure. So this comes to you, Sonia, because AI is currently being used in the Canadian immigration system. And what changes are we seeing because of it? I imagine there are positive changes, but also we are still learning and there are a few challenges. How can you share with us a bit more about it?
Yeah. So with respect to sort of in continuation of what Andrea was talking about, that ultimately a human factor has to be involved in making decisions. This is what IRCC claiming that they're doing, and I'll get into the details of it right now, but as we're seeing the pattern, this will get diminished because of the number of factors, and one of the main ones heavily based on the number of applications that Canada is receiving in immigration system. So I'll just backtrack a little bit. I'll give them sort of like a brief history of where this is coming from, and how are they streamlining the processes right now based on AI tools, and then we'll take it from there. So automated decision-making systems, just the general description, is there to help human decision makers come up with their decisions, right? They analyze past behaviors to find the patterns and then help with decision-making process. Now, there are two types of decision-making process that we're concerned about in immigration system right now. What we call a prescriptive or predictive. The predictive one is the one that is currently being used with the tools that I'll be discussing in a minute. The prescriptive one is the one that we fear that if it's going to be used, it's going to be taking over the decision making of the officers, and it's actually going to be making decisions on the applications, and it gets a little scary. From what we're seeing right now, that's going to be, we're not there yet, but if we ever get there, it's going to be flawed in terms of procedural fairness, in terms of all the challenges that's going to create for the applications. Now, just to give you a bit of a data, in 2024, last year, Immigration Department received 2.2 million applications. So they had 2.2 applications in inventory. And they had, out of that 2.2 million, they had 949.5 applications in backlog. So imagine the number of applications. And this is, and what I'm talking about the combination of temporary residency, permanent residency, and citizenship. And now allocation is obviously less on the citizenship side, more on the temporary residency side because of international students and so forth. But all in all, 900,000 applications are in backlog. So what immigration does, and essentially there are two tools that they're using right now. They're softwares, and now we get into how we sort of prescribe them as AI. They're purely software, but how is it being used as AI? I'll talk about it in a minute. Currently, there are two softwares immigration is using. One is called ITAT, that's for risk assessments. That basically screens the application for fraud, any past misrepresentation, any refugee claims, criminality, etc. And there is a very famous one that everybody talks about, Chinook. And what Chinook does, it deals with bulk applications. So it has the potential of processing hundreds, if not thousands, of applications at the same time. And so the usage of Chinook came into place. IRCC started using it back in 2017. It was a pilot project for only the visa applications that were being submitted in India and China, because as we know, those are the big two countries that have massive amount of applications on a yearly basis. They started using that. It was very successful, and then they eventually expanded that to all the countries around the world. Right now, as we're speaking, I think all the countries are using it except the US, I believe, and I think whether the conversations with that US is going to start using it too. But when it comes to data like this, the government in general, release data related to technology kind of aftermath a little later. So all of our information, all the information that I'm giving you guys today might be a little outdated. It's just because it's based off of the data that we're currently have access to, right? So anyways, all the countries are using the tool. What does Chinook do is, it's just imagine an Excel tool. It attracts it screens all the data from the application. It puts all the data in an Excel sheet. Just imagine an Excel sheet with all the columns, and then it highlights the information that are sort of flagged, based on the past rejection, for example, or based on not having family ties to Canada, or it could be various reasons. It just highlights that for the officer, and it could do 100 applications at the same time. So what happens is that when the officer is looking at the sheet, they'll be able to quickly see all the applications, all the applicants. They'll be able to see the columns that are flagging out, and based on that, they'll be coming with a decision right away quickly. Okay. Now, what it also does for mainly TRV applications, visa applications, inland applications such as PGWP, postgraduate work permits, and it's being expanded to many applications right now, it triages the application, meaning that it screens it when the application is submitted. They've got 3 tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 1 is being the very low risk, meaning that it's the first application, there's no past rejection, everything is clear. Tier 2, medium risk, and Tier 3 is high risk, meaning that there are a lot of factors involved that are complicating the cases. So what happens is that Tier 2 and Tier 3 ultimately gets pushed to the officer to make a decision, but Tier 1 is being decided by the system, and the outcome comes out, right? Either the refusal letter or the approval letter comes out. The challenge is that, though, what we're seeing is that the data is being manipulated, in the sense that it's not being extracted completely from the information an applicant is submitting, and so therefore something is being missed in there, and therefore application is being refused. What we often, which is sort of like ironic, is that we're often seeing the decisions that are being made by officers, which are the ones that are complicated in nature, right? Those are the ones that have higher approval rates compared to the ones that are in Tier 1, which is sort of contradictory, because those are essentially the ones that we're suspecting that, probably 70–80% it's going to be a chance of refusal, right? So anyways, this is the problem that we're seeing with the system right now, how it's affecting the decision making right now. Now, what I wanted to also add is that how Chinook is being explained, or being sort of understood as an AI system. There's another version of the tool called Cumulus. It's not Chinook, it's Cumulus, but it's more intelligent version of Chinook. And what we believe is that IRCC has started using that, and with that, as it's a better version, it uses generative AI, and it produces reasoning, and it produces more evidence, factual based, in the reasoning that comes out. Right now, with the use of Chinook, a lot of times when you get the GCMS notes, and just, and quotes and quotes, if somebody doesn't know what GCMS notes is, majority of the people do, but those are the officer's notes that we rely on if there's a rejection, and if there's going to be any litigation later in the court, those are the notes that, we're relying on. Oftentimes, right now, the information that's been extracted by Chinook is not being transferred properly in GCMS notes. So you see how challenging it is when the file gets refused, and you're relying on the GCMS notes to know what exactly happened, but you're not seeing the results. right? With Cumulus, which is the advanced version of Chinook, because they're using AI, all the reasons are being generated in a proper form, in a proper paragraph, based on the evidence and the facts that's been submitted by the applicants. And so it's becoming a little bit easier in terms of reliance on those nodes for further litigations. There's so many concerns with the tools. We're going to get to that a little later, but so far that's what's being used in immigration system. All the other departments are sort of following that. The CBSA, Canada Border Services Agency, Social Services, ASDC, for reviewing LMIE applications. Like all these departments are sort of following IRCC in terms of using all these certain tools. And yeah, so basically that's how we should be dealing with information right now.
Wow, it's a scenario of continuous improvement and learning. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Changes almost every day, like we are seeing in other sectors. So we could understand how how is the transition now in all these aspects and risks, Sonia? And how would you advise entrepreneurs and leaders that are planning to apply, what kind of things they can do to reduce the risk of being included in this list of rejections for any kind of mistake? Is there any kind of advice or steps that we can follow to reduce this risk?
Yeah. That's a good question, Raquel. So what we've seen so far up to this point is that the usage of AI tools have been used primarily for the applications that are a bit more streamlined, like temporary residency permits. Because there's certain factors, I mean, every application is sure different, but there's certain factors that immigration is looking into in order to come up with a decision. And those are the patterns that's been repeating over and over on each application. That's why the tool is functional for those type of applications. The tool is not so much functional for entrepreneurial programs, such as starter visa programs, such as PNP applications for different provinces. It's just because those cases are complex. There's just so many factors and layers that needs to be verified on every single application that's, we're not there yet. We may get there in a few years, but we're not there yet. So in terms of advice or a piece of word to entrepreneurs, foreign entrepreneurs, I mean, if you're a person who would ultimately have to apply for a work permit to come to Canada as the first step, then you would kind of have to be knowledgeable and you would be alarmed about what to submit on your application to make sure that you're covering all the corners. If you're an entrepreneur that are applying for permanent residency from the get-go, then I wouldn't be too concerned about the usage of tools, immigration tools on your application at this point. Going back to the work permit applications, when you're submitting an application, I would suggest to everybody, and I'm sure, I'm always here to help and provide advice, but if you're working with any lawyer or any law firm that's representing your case, make sure that, your application forms, your documents, and the submission form that's being submitted on the application is quite comprehensive. It's capturing every single detail on your application. And it's not only, there's a checklist for each process, and there are certain documents that are needed, which are generic documents. If you feel like there's something that strengthens your case and provides more factual evidence to your case, improves your case, submit it there, put it in a submission letter. What happens is that if it's not captured by the tool, and if you ultimately, unfortunately, gets into the refusal, you set a ground, and those documents, those information become quite crucial when you're litigating your case in judicial review. And later I'll get into that, what happens if the file gets rejected? What do I do now? Whether it's been screened by an officer or it's been screened by the system, what do I do? What's my next step? One of the steps is judicial review, litigating the case in federal court. And when that happens, you're not allowed to submit any new evidence to the federal court. It's purely off of the evidences that's been submitted initially. That's why it becomes very important on all kinds of relevant information that you should submit at the beginning.
Perfect, Sonia. Thank you for clarifying. So the heads up is to create a very complete and with clarity, right? Clarity
Exactly.
of information, and with all the information you can have to put your profile in a high qualified chance to be accepted. That's
Exactly.
That's great. And Andrea, so regarding risks, in your vision, how is AI transforming the way business assess risks, shaping economy, forecasting, and business intelligence for international expansion?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, coming from an economic background, data is kind of everything to us, right? And so AI is, I would say, maybe the 2.0 of economic forecasting, because you're always looking at how do you take the data that's available to you to answer the question of, well, which is the riskier market, which is the market where it has the most opportunities. And I think AI is something that's been used in the financial industry, for example, for many years, and similar to maybe what's happening in the immigration application systems, where AI is being utilized to provide financial decisions. So, for example, whether someone can get credit, for example, it goes through these algorithms. And now with AI, it's speeding up the process, optimizing the process, and providing those final decisions automated in an automated way. And there's risks to that, because much like Sonia was mentioning, there are nuances, or there's more complexities that need to be taken into consideration. And so when you're using these models, again, be mindful of what are maybe some of the rules that are being put in place to provide you with those decisions. So I would say risk number one is maybe giving you the answer that is not the most optimal for what you're looking to do. But I think in terms of business intelligence, it's providing a lot of opportunities. I can give examples of 70,000 variable models that if you were to do that manually and looking at different combinations of data and seeing what answers it could provide to you is extremely challenging. And so I think one of the biggest let's say benefits of using AI when assessing risk is optimizing your time. I think that's a lot of the time, and Raquel, I would love to hear how small businesses are also thinking about this, because it is optimizing your time and finding those solutions when you don't have the time to manually look at where the biggest opportunities are, or what your next market could be, or industry for that matter. But I think AI is transforming a lot. It's changing the way that people are thinking. It's changing the way that people see how much time they want to put into various different tasks. And it's really about having that view of optimizing for the objective that you're looking to achieve. And it is no different in business development than it is in financial markets or in various other areas. And so I'd love to chat more about the opportunities, but you know what, I'll pop it over to you, Raquel, and talking about the different ways in which AI can be used in different businesses. And I think one thing that you learn, especially when you go to Brazil, how important networking, building social capital is. And so in your experience, what would you say are kind of ways in which AI is either influencing or can help entrepreneurs build that social capital when we're so virtual nowadays?
That's a great question, Andrea. Thank you for asking me, because it's true. We still have it's very important to keep the warm connection to go in events. I know you just came back from Brazil from a mission with BCCC, and how important it is to keep this relationship, building the connection in person, and having conversations and interactions with the different environments, especially if you are understanding more about the cultural nuances and all the landscape in the ecosystem you want to expand, right? But at the same time, you can use AI to help you with those information and research, right? So if you collect data from the right place, and you include to AI to help you frame that in a way that you can capture what kind of organizations you can connect with, which chambers of commerce, or what kind of associations in my sector I can better benefit being part of it. What kind of events are happening during this period that I can assess, and I can do conversations online. So it's not only about search, because sometimes we do have all the information available, but how can you gather everything and you put in a way that you have a process that you can organize your routine and create with agents or with some kind of assistant, how you can create some inputs that can help you not to forget about things that are very important, to connect, to comment someone that's talking about the topic is important to you in the country, and you know a lot about the topic, but you don't realize in your routine, in active time, how you can better do that. So I think you can create a series of actions and procedures and process with the tool of AI and the mechanism that AI can provide, using the right data to help you build those connections and really understand where you can really dive in and invest your time in those conversations. So this is one point, but I think the risk, let's say, and the importance, I think, in this moment right now is to know what to do and use the right data. And for that, you need training, right? We cannot um, um, be sure that the information that we are using, if we don't know how to frame that, how to create the prompts, how to create the commands for the machine, we might be making decisions in the wrong path, right? So training, even small business entrepreneurs that are expanding now for other countries, they can receive more guidance with experts in the industry and AI to really understand how they can better use and be more productive. I think this is the heads up, right? You can do a lot. You can have many virtual assistants helping you to build those actions for your strategy to build your social capital, but you need to know how to do it. And so guidance, training, and continue update, I believe it's truly important, and we have to start now because the companies are going to lose competition very soon, and it's not because AI is taking the jobs or anything like that. It's also taking some jobs, but much more is because your competitor is using and is becoming much more productive and faster than you are if you don't use it.
I love that, Raquel. It's about learning, about training, making sure you're using the right prompts. But it is about competitiveness. It is very much about your competitors using tools to use their time more efficiently. I think this is obviously dating back to the Industrial Revolution, and you're having similar trends that happen over time where you're looking for those opportunities to use your time and your resources more efficiently. And that's what competitiveness really comes in. And so, Sonia, I'm going to pop one over to you now, really thinking about that same topic and the topic of work permits and bringing folks, whether into Canada or into other markets, but specifically into Canada. How do you see AI shaping Canada's ability to attract global entrepreneurs and investors, given the context, but also just more broadly, how AI is being leveraged for that?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm sorry, somebody's ringing the door. I mean, there are processes in place, as you know, we talked about it. There are challenges that we're facing right now. There are refusals that we're seeing. So what the future would entail in terms of how the AI is being leveraged is that it's not going to go away. AI is not going to go away ultimately. It's just going to get more and more smarter, if that's the word, or it's just going to, the usage is going to be more and more widespread. What does that mean? It means that, you know, the intake of the applications will be automated eventually. The decision-making process in real time will be automated eventually. You know, the whole process of application data mining is going to come in. There are a lot of talks about, you know, data analysis, predicting the outcomes, the digital surveillance, the IP tracking, like all of that, similar to like credit card companies that are tracking, you know, the usage. It'll be the same thing for immigration applications, where they can track that, you know, a refugee claimant, for example, whether it's in the country or flying out, or, you know, in terms of the restrictions that they have for certain applications. That's where we're going to go with the AI. And the concerns is that the concerns are very similar to what we have right now, but it's just going to be more and more as to ultimately who's the decision maker on the applications, right? How does that get reflected into the reasoning of if there's a refusal? How does that get reflected into that? Who are we? You know, we're often dealing with foreigners that are applying for immigration. It's less on the Canadian side of Canadian PRs, and that's only on the citizenship applications. But often there are foreign nationals that are applying for immigration. How are we protecting their data? How are they being protected against automated bias and, you know, procedural fairness? You know, all of those questions. Who's having access to those private data from these people? So these are all the concerns, these are all the challenges that not only work permit holders or work permit applications, not only PR applications, all kinds of immigration applications that are being handled by the AI system will face. Do I have an answer for it right now? No. Does other immigration practitioners know exactly where we're heading? No. But going back to the comment that Raquel, you know, said a few minutes earlier, in terms of educating yourself, in terms of knowing, training yourself, this is also a part that in immigration industry, lawyers are very much focused right now, because this is certainly something that is not being taught at school to any of them. This is a very new thing, and it's also something that is very much changing the form of administrative law, at least, which immigration falls under it. So it's a training that everybody has to get, and it's also a training for the applicants to know the direction of the application. And if I, for example, submit an application, get a refusal in 24 to 48 hours, what do I do now? What's my next step? That's clearly not an officer. Like, out of gazillion number of applications that are being, you know, submitted, I won't be able to get an answer in 24 hours. So I know that this is probably the system that processed it, and, you know, what's my next step from there?
Yeah. That's a good question, Sonia.
Yeah.
And how about investment trends, Andrea? If you think about AI, how AI is influencing investment trends between Canada and Latin America, particularly Brazil?
Absolutely. And I think, and I see a question as well as how we're seeing AI spread throughout Canada and throughout different industries, and where is the application of AI maybe most prominent, and it touches on where the investment trends are. I think in most cases, a lot of the AI applications that we hear about or we see are very consumer based applications. And so when you log into your Bell or your Rogers account, you have a chatbot there that's kind of giving you the answers that you need, and that's becoming widespread. I think there's a lot of competition in that area. Now we're starting to see more advanced applications or more niche applications, companies that are looking at risk assessments, for example, very specific risk assessments where they're taking images and pulling them in to see what maintenance needs to happen. And that's something that you would need to do manually. And now, again, we're going back to that, where are we finding those efficiencies? And so you're seeing investment trends in those types of applications, in optimization, just optimization of processes. You've seen it a lot in terms of administrative processes, and Sonia was mentioning on the legal side of things, where you have to parse through, thousands of documents, or Raquel, to your example, when you're parsing through advice or who could be key partners. Those are all large language models that are providing you an answer to your question, and you're seeing, again, a lot of investment in those areas. Where you're now seeing companies explore more is in applications that are much more specific. For example, in optimizing shipping routes, for example, in optimizing where to locate charging stations, for example. So you're seeing all of these new applications and coming from companies that have a lot of background in that specific industry. So whether it be transportation, whether it be energy, whether it be mining. Mining is another fantastic example. And so I think what you're seeing the investments come in from the large companies themselves, thinking, how do we get that competitive edge? How do we solve for these issues? Is there a way to leverage the mountains of data that we have to help us make decisions? And I think that's where you're going to see quite a bit of investment, quite a bit of attention paid. In certain countries, it's going to be a little bit easier than others. In the financial sector is a perfect example, where you see Brazil moving forward with a lot of innovation in that industry, particularly into incorporating AI, whereas Canada is a little bit more restrictive in how it incorporates innovation in the banking sector. And so it really depends on the market you're looking at. It depends on the industry. But I think in anyone that's thinking about either investing into AI or starting to leverage AI, start with what objective, what problem is it that you're trying to solve? Is AI the solution? And do you have the data and the structure to actually make it happen? And that could be a very good thesis for an investment. And I think those that are most successful in this space have looked at those three areas, and you're going to see some big changes in industries that you wouldn't normally think would be leveraging AI.
Raquel, we've got a really interesting question here that talks about women entrepreneurs, and I think you would be the best person to tackle that. What are the challenges that, have you seen any challenges that specifically women entrepreneurs are facing as immigrants when it comes to, usage of AI, or can AI provide any solutions for them tackling getting into the, business market in Canada? What are your thoughts around that?
That's a very good question. I think, as Andrea was saying, have to do our homework first, right? So we can create a series of collaboration with AI to organize the information we have and to create a much more precise scenario using all the research we already have. Imagine like hundreds of materials that we have in place, but uh, we would take hours, hundreds of hours to find out what is the priority and understand better. But with AI, we can do it in seconds. So I think we have to do the homework first to use AI as a tool. And for women entrepreneurs, I would say that use AI to reduce this part of operational work and focus on your own preparation and your soft skills because men have a lot of opportunity to like connect to lead process interactions leading conversations and we are still on the process. We don't have much space to practice like we are doing today, and I think women have to be bold and practice or in a safe space or in an environment where they can learn and share to really showcase what they are doing, but also build more the relationship they need in a new ecosystem. So what I see with my clients and sometimes business owners that come here, they know a lot about their business, their value proposition. They have a great business plan. They know what they are doing, but they don't have the right connections. And sometimes they do know which connections are important, but how they can approach, how they can create this empathy and interaction the best way. So I would say for women entrepreneurs, first, just do it. You have to start the process because it's the practice and be active and proactive that is going to help you to have more space in the Canadian ecosystem and using AI to reduce all the operational parts that you can so you have more time for it.
That's amazing. And I think with that, shall we open the stage for all the questions? Because I know that a lot of our audience might be having questions, and they're just waiting to probably post it there. So I think have we covered all the topics? I think we have, right, Raquel? We did. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, don't be shy. Go ahead, type your question here. And also, I mean, if there's something, a lot of times, when the conversation is ongoing, it might not pop up for you, but if something comes to you after the webinar, by all means, you're more than welcome to send us an email, and our emails, each of us, for Andrea, Raquel, myself, will be posted on the chat, there, right there for you, accessible, so that if anything comes up and you would want to share, we're more than happy to listen to it, answer, and be able to assist. So with that being said,
I have a question here from Salo. Salo Rappaport. Thank you, Salo, for the contribution. He's saying, I think Sonia and Andrea can add value for this. So he's saying, drilling down Peter's question, the first one about the women entrepreneurs, do you see AI spreading in Canada more in IT functions, or are we seeing new functions as role being created to expand AI applications? How do you see that? Sonia, Andrea, who wants to start?
I'm happy to start with the broader, let's say, a global view on this topic, because it's often one of the fears, right? Is it going to, one, take over the jobs of particular functions? Is it going to create new jobs? And I say it's a little bit of both. And Raquel, you said that earlier as well. Depending on the use of AI, in a lot of institutions, you're seeing it put into IT, if that is the problem it is solving for, right? That's where your chatbots are coming in. That's where your problem solving or systems, when you're trying to develop new systems and you're developing internal systems, that's where you're going to see it. You're seeing a lot of organizations, however, have now separate, either it started as information officers, and now they're becoming AI officers, artificial intelligence officers, because they're looking at it from a much more corporate structural view of looking at our entire supply chain, our value chain. Where could we benefit from AI? And so this is for companies that are applying AI into their business processes. For companies that are developing AI, it's almost the inverse, obviously, where they're starting to build out teams that are specific industry use cases. And so in many areas, if you're an expert, let's say in mining, and you're not familiar with AI, and there's some concerns that maybe you'd lose your role because of AI, don't fret, because there's a lot of opportunities to leverage that subject matter expertise into developing AI applications for that industry. I think it's having that open mindset and understanding of where, if I know my industry, I know where there's some bottlenecks. I know where there's opportunities to find efficiencies, and thinking of it that way, you can then become potentially the person that starts thinking about how do we apply AI in my organization. And so think of it as a problem solver rather than a maybe a risk to the labor market, and think of it as an opportunity to develop new roles. And don't be shy to develop those roles yourself, and think of the ways in which they can be applied. And Sonia, over to you for your views from your side.
I mean, I'm going to be talking about exclusively from the legal perspective. Like I mentioned earlier, the usage of AI is going to be more and more in the, disposition of the departmental decisions, particularly IRCC, immigration. And that's because of the nature of it, of the massive amount of applications that they're receiving on a yearly basis. Now, mind you that without getting into political comments here, there were some radical decisions that were made last year purely off of the hike up of number of applications. And what I mean by radical solutions was, restricting many of the processes, immigration processes, such as, elimination of certain programs, especially when it comes to dealing with entrepreneurs, the PMP programs, putting cap on startup visa programs, putting cap on international students, the PGWPs, the spouses of the workers in Canada. So we've seen a whole array of restrictions that came into effect last year, which was in response to the number of applications that they had in inventory. And as I said, I kind of pointed out the numbers earlier too. So with the usage of AI, with the look of it, from the sound of it, it's going to be more and more as we go, and that always brings challenges, legal challenges, in the legal industry. And I sort of, if I want to talk about it honestly, I can talk hours about, the type of challenges that we're facing right now, the type of challenges that later on, when the application gets litigated in the federal court, they're facing right now, and where are we going with all of this, and the points that are driving all the lawyers crazy right now with all the decisions that are coming out, which is purely off of the system. You know, I can just rant about it for hours, but what is very obvious is that the usage of AI is just going to be expanded in the future, purely to sort of mitigate the backlog and process the applications on a bulk basis. So that's on the legal standpoint. Raquel, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I can add. Thank you, Sonia. Of course, we don't want to put fear in anyone about all this process, but adding value to Salo's question, I think there is a role for the associations of segments and niche segments that they can play an important proactive approach to support the specialists and the experts in the fields, the specific fields, to understand how they can improve their work, their knowledge using AI as an agent, as a support for their decision making and for their creation and innovation. So what we have been seeing, talking to organizations like small business owners and associations like engineers association, legal associations, chambers of commerce, is that if we target those members in a way that we can train them and they can understand better the use of AI for their niche, I think we are going to have less risk of misuse and also more opportunity to create and innovate and bring maybe AI for good in many sectors. So I think that the time now is really to focus on thinking how we can be better prepared instead of using just to review your email or searching without any kind of serious data and searching for sources, right? My background is in journalism, and in all my life, the most important thing is if you are using sources that you can trust, and if you are collecting the information in an objective way and understanding all the nuances. And I think we have to have the same approach with AI, thinking, having the self-awareness about what information are we putting to be analyzed. And in the sectors, like Salo was asking, my God, I think there is a huge opportunity to these organizations, these representatives of each sector, to stand out, offering something more specific. I think we are almost in the end of our time here. We have 3 minutes. I think we have one more question from Salo. So he's saying, many thanks, Andreson and Raquel. I see also AI growing hand in hand as part of an innovative culture. Exactly your point, Raquel. Well, thank you. I didn't read before, but it's true. I think you can use AI to help you brainstorm, to help you bring other kinds of ideas, create, provoke intentionally how you can open your mind and open your mindset. And I would say for international entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs, even more, we can create, like we can create personas for marketing, we can create personas for cultures and understand how that culture would behave, what kind of communication etiquette that culture has, how can I better approach? So you can learn with all the data we have in a way that you can better communicate and have better interaction. So I think it's super rich, and at the same time, everything we are saying, how important it is to do it with preparation and the right tools, and be careful about it, right? Not to use it in a wrong way. Let's close the conversation with a conclusion about what we have talked. So Sonia, can you can you say in a minute a bit more in what would be your closing points? You are much.
I'm sorry. I was trying to stay quiet while you guys were talking. I forgot to unmute myself. So as I sort of alluded earlier, I just can't emphasize how important that is when submitting an application, at the time of submitting an application. And to include as detailed as possible information about relevant to the application, and I emphasize relevancy because oftentimes applicants try to give more information, and more information always comes back to haunt you at some point. So relevant information, detailed response to all the questions on the application form, detailed submission letter that goes into all the facts that are related to your case. If you need your case to be reviewed by a lawyer or by a practitioner, please do. That's the step prior to submitting your application. That's the stage that you have to get that done. And once you submit your application, speaking of AI, speaking of all the tools that IRCC is using these days, if you get an unfavorable result and you get a refusal and rejection, again, talk to an immigration practitioner, reliable immigration practitioner. Again, I put quote unquote reliable because there are so many in the market, as we all know, that are practicing, but they're not really licensed, or they shouldn't be. Talk to a reliable person to see what will be your next step. Is your next step reapplying? Is your next step litigating the case and going to federal court? What is your next step? Okay, so take your steps very consciously, knowing that there is a tool that IRCC is using that is not necessarily to your favor. And if you fall in that category, what are going to be done as further steps for you? That's my last piece. And I thank everybody that joined. I was looking at the participant. Everybody stayed all throughout the conversation with us, which is always a good sign. That means we engaged them, we had good comments, and we had good engagement for them. So thank you everyone for attending today.
Thank you, Sonia. Andrea, would you like to say your closure remarks?
Yes. I'll steal one of Sonia's words, relevant. Whether you're looking to apply AI into your organization or you're looking to develop an AI solution, think of a relevant problem that you're looking to solve. The market is becoming extremely competitive in certain areas. So think of new cool ideas and have that open mind to see how you can leverage the data. And then the second closing point is do your homework. And this, I'm stealing now Raquel's line of do your homework, have good data, have solid rules, have subject matter experts contribute to that, because it's extremely important to use these tools diligently and to use them responsibly. Think that also when you're using them in Canada, you might have different rules. When you're using them in Brazil, there's different privacy rules, as Sonia mentioned. There's different rules around how to use AI. So really do your homework to know the best way that you can leverage AI when you're looking to expand internationally. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Sonia. Really appreciate our conversation. Thank you for Peter and Salo for the questions, for the audience that sent us before the questions in advance. If you have anything you want to connect with us, I think Khalil sent us our contacts in the chat box. But BCCC is always connecting and helping anyone that wants to know more about the Canadian and Brazilian ecosystem. So on behalf of BCCC, I want to thank our guests, sponsors, partners, members, and the audience for taking the time to be here with us. Make sure to follow us online and to review membership and sponsorship opportunities to be part of our network. Thank you for joining us today, and count on BCCC to expand your network in Brazil and in Canada.